I strongly believe that when you love doing something and it ends up being something you do for work, it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's something I love, and I give all that appreciation to this program and my teacher, Mr. Piper.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Travis Hunter, and I'm currently a senior at St. Mary's High School, and I've been in the welding program since my freshman year. So I've got to see a change over the course of the 4 years that I've been there, and since Mr. Pfeiffer has taken over, it's had some pretty great changes. We've got a lot of new equipment, and not only that, we have a lot more knowledge being taught to us from a teacher that had way more experience in the field than the previous one did. So we've got to learn how to weld vertical better than we did before. We've got to learn how to weld pipe, how to cut it and bevel it. And then we've got to apply it to real life scenarios, building projects, not out of just brand new material. We've got to build it out of stuff from out in the scrapyard. So you're not welding on something that's brand new. You got to clean it up. You got to make it work for you. And it's nice being able to do that because it's going to apply to you later on in life. If you do want to further yourself in that career, you're not just going to be out there trying to do it and not know how, because you've learned how to do it on all types of materials. And we've got a lot of new equipment since he's been in there. We've replaced most of the old welders. We've gotten new torches. We got a track torch, which I really like because if you're cutting a lot of metal and you want everything to be the same, it's a lot easier. It doesn't replace doing it by hand. And Mr. Pfeiffer knows that, and he makes us learn how to do it by hand first, which I really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Scott Dickinson, and Pfeiffer, as Travis said, he's definitely improved the welding shop program.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Mr. Pfeiffer.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Sorry, I'm old school.
No, that's all right. No, but we have new ways to process material as we didn't before. We have the sheet metal brakes, and we have the sheet metal bender in there, and it makes it to where we can process materials for like tests and other projects way quicker because we can make angles and different degrees and stuff for making like these keychain holders. We use the sheet metal bender on those. And then the CNC plasma table has also been a big change to the shop. It has opened up a lot of opportunities because we've made them those welcome signs. And then there's been I think those are tape measure holders and some other things up there. But it's getting us to where we can organize our shop a lot better and do a lot more things. There's hundreds and thousands of different designs you can do. You can cut out all sorts of thicknesses of metal. You can do like intricate stuff like on keychains, or you can do bigger stuff like that. You can even do like stuff on like a whole wall piece if you had a big enough table. But yeah, that's a big improvement. And as we've also the new generator welder that we have makes it to where we can go out and actually learn how to be outside and weld, because the conditions of being inside versus outside are a lot different, with wind and rain and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the new equipment has definitely helped us learn to further our knowledge in the welding program.
Good.
And yeah. And what Travis is passing around is our new TIG welder that we got. Our last TIG welder, it would just break down every 5 minutes. And so we got a new TIG welder, and kids have been learning how to weld aluminum. And a lot of kids are actually really talented in welding aluminum. I'm not one of them, but a lot of kids can. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Good evening. My name is Cody Lowe, and I'm representing the shop with these. Like these two have previously said, I've been in the shop ever since I was a freshman. It's something I've always enjoyed ever since I was very, very little. I've always wanted to weld. Something that Mr. Pfeiffer has brought to the table is that he's always trying to make sure that we're doing things the right way, which our previous teacher was not super strict about. He makes sure that it would pass code and be real life applicable. We've had, as they've said time and time again, a big improvement in all of our equipment. Can't tell you how many times our equipment has broke down or just not met the applications that we've needed or been able to do what we wanted to do. I would recommend shop to anybody that has even the spark of interest in it, because as a further job, it could take you places that you would have never dreamed of. It's a very, very unique program, and I would suggest it to everybody. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you with the CPE grant that we got, and there's a lot of support and a lot of effort moving forward in the shop that we're going to try and put together, and the tools, and to try and get your guys' skills to where, or when you come out of school, you'll be able to do lots of different things. So,
Do you guys have any questions for us?
how big? What's the thickest metal that you can go to on your brake, and how wide?
I think it's 12 gauge and 40, or no, it's
48
14
inches.
gauge and 48 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can take a 4x8 sheet of metal theoretically and put it in there and bend it.
Okay. All right. Pretty good size.
And I feel like I speak for our whole program. We can't express the gratitude of the grant that you guys got for us.
Okay. Well, just keep learning, and learn all that you can. You guys are doing good. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Thanks, Mr.
Yes, thank you for the keychain holders. Very nice.
I need to coat one next.
How thick can your plasma tape cut?
It will cut out professionally ½ inch, and it'll sever up to 3 quarters. So you've got to turn everything back and slow down quite a bit.
Yeah. And 4x4?
Yeah, it's 4x4 table, so we throw half like a 4x8 sheet in there and process the half inch. I'm gonna leave this stuff up here.
Okay.
So after your meeting, take a look at it. I'm sure the gals from the district office will be in all when they want to clean it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one thing these gentlemen forgot to mention was, of course, the appreciation for these grants and whatnot, but we listened to our community when they said we need students coming out that are career ready, and with those grants and with Mr. Pfeiffer's tutelage, they're gonna come out and we're gonna put some people in the workforce that are ready. And that was the whole goal. And I think we've achieved that, and so I'm super proud of them. Next is our ASB crew, headed by Miss Becky Holder.
Mom.
The daughter's not here.
Yeah, where's the daughter?
Strike two.
That was 3. So I'm out.
Yeah. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk tonight. I'm here with our Sergeant in Arms, our ASB rep, and Addison Stewart's one of our junior class students. She heads the Lotus stand-up that we started out at the high school, and I'll let her talk about that. Emily's kind of my right-hand man when it comes to getting posters and stuff done, so she was a natural pick to come and speak tonight. She kind of knows all the inner workings that all the stuff we've been up to this year, so go ahead and let Addison start out.
ASB partnered with Shift and Grind this year to start a Lotus stand at the school so we can serve drinks and stuff at events. And we recently just took on cold brew, so that's pretty cool. And if you haven't had a chance to try out the drinks at the Lumberjack Cafe, you're really missing out.
Addison actually, she kind of penned a logo and stuff for the Lumberjack Cafe on the board. Michelle took a picture and put it on. We have a canvas print of it now that hangs in front of our Lotus stand. Just lets you know all proceeds go back to ASB, all the work and stuff that goes into it. These kids do. So good job on the logo.
This year started with homecoming, and the theme this year was Survivor. We had dress-up days, spirit days, competitions, and clues each day that led the community to the community idol. which if found, gave extra points to whoever found it. ASB playing games and other activities that included everybody. And it was a great way to start a new year to set the standard of how we wanted to spend the rest of the school year.
After homecoming week, we immediately started decorating for Red Ribbon Week and planning for the dress up days for that week, and then other events like Trunk or Treat and Veterans Day, which means more paint and glitter, but we rose to the challenge. And dare to say, this is Joe and the maintenance staff's favorite part.
Glitter.
We worked with the schools in our district to coordinate celebrating during these events, to try and include the community as much as possible, such as the middle school and the Hayward, which they had fun dressing up on those days too. We have a full schedule coming up, and ASB is working hard to find ways to bring students and staff together to celebrate.
The month of December has become a time of tradition at the high school as well. Deck the halls comes with weekly dress up, lunchtime games, decorating, and celebrating all month. We end right before Christmas break with an assembly where all classes participate in singing Christmas carols and minute-to-minute games. This year, we added a great game for the teachers called Pie Teachers in the Face. It was a big hit, no pun intended. I think it's safe to say we will bring that back next year.
Have
I think the
pictures.
teachers had more fun than the students.
Yeah. I have a few pictures of that event.
There's videos circulating.
Yes, there are.
Hey, weren't you one of the victims?
Yes.
wasn't.
It's on camera.
So I guess they touched on a little bit of what we've done all year. They never rest. We're always trying to find new ways to reach out to the community, to do fundraisers, to give back. I think it's very important for the kids to see where all of their support comes from and return that as much as possible. And I really don't have to ask them. They come up with ways on their own, and I'm just there to support and make sure that it happens. So I'm really proud of them for that. We're getting ready to start our annual food drive competition with Potlatch Deltic and Valley Vista Care Center, Benoit Community Hospital. Several of the small businesses in town participate. Last year, we raised just under 12,000 pounds, and that was divided amongst our local food bank and Upriver. So we, all three schools, Upriver, Rayburn Middle School, I guess 4 schools, and high school participated for that. And actually, in pound for pound, the school district brought the most food in. When it came to dollars, Potlatch kind of beat us on that, but we kind of expected it. So we have numbers and stuff too that we can share with you if you want. Just other things that we're planning. If you guys have any suggestions, we'd like to have new things to do.
When was that food drive again?
It's starting soon. We usually start middle of February, and it'll go until the middle of March. We'll do it about a month, a little over a month. So it's a good time to do it right after the holidays. I think we kind of restock our shelves and make sure everybody's taken care of.
I just want to thank everybody for letting us speak, and I was wondering if anybody had any questions.
Where's our Lotus drinks?
I
mean, we got a deal here from the publishers. We got a keychain.
We did bring you something.
Oh, okay.
Lumberjack strong.
So we greet the students in the morning before school starts with some music and stuff in the hallways and hand out bracelets, candy, just things to start their day on a positive note once in a while. So
Great.
yeah.
like my bling? You guys like my bling? I love my bling.
We sell those at the games for $1 a piece to just get out the lumberjack support across the.
We'll make up for it in the food drive.
Dollar for dollar.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So they're on their way out. I just want to reiterate how proud I am of our ASB crew. My philosophy and culture at the high school is to preach leadership and community, and Miss Becky Holder does that amazingly, and our students pick up on that and say, we first need to be good leaders, and then we need to give back to our community. Science and math, they'll come along. But as long as we're those two things, we're going to be good people in our community. So I'm so proud of them, and thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight.
Good job, Mom. I'll tell you what. Okay. Moving on to monthly building reports, St. Mary's High School, Mr. Asbury.
Okay. I'm here with a little heavy heart since my 49ers failed me yesterday. Sorry, Mr. Harvey. Congratulations, but I cannot make eye contact with you right now. Okay. So moving on to official business. At St. Mary's High School, we practiced our alternative evacuation drill last month on the 1st. That drill represents if there's an issue with the football field, our primary evac, or anything on campus, we line up alternatively, and our first alternative site is the gym, which poses a problem because you're cramped in that small space versus on the football field. So we've performed 2 of those drills this year, 8 minutes and 20 seconds, much improved from the first drill, improving our communication, how that's relayed back to the school on our radios, which sometimes, if anybody's driven down Lumberjack Lane, the radio and cell phone communication once you go down Lumberjack Lane sometimes is an issue. So we're working through those and coming up with better methods to ensure communication is present at all times. Our data review is looking at the high school piloting of the math curriculum, which different than the rest of the district. The high school only had one curriculum that applied, and so it's across a couple of grades. And the reports back from the students, just kind of a straw poll. They enjoy the shorter, quicker lessons versus the long, drawn out stuff. The updated data in the lessons. A past textbook was going off interest rates from 1996. So just upgrading the word problems and the real life applicable story or word problems in those books, the students really enjoy. So we'll know more as that pilot continues. Student recognition. Actually, I took a different turn this month, and Miss Holder probably already left, but we went with Miss Holder as our student staff of the month because of everything she does. She's the lifeblood of that building, and she does everything with our community and leadership. Those are my 2 pillars, and Miss Holder handles those impeccably. And so we just really appreciate Becky and everything she does for us at the high school. Tonight you saw our woodshop yearbook and ASB groups. It's our goal to, branch out from, the math, science, English, history, and make sure every student has something that makes them want to show up during the day. That could be math, that could be English, but it's not for everybody. So I sure appreciate those guys showing up tonight and letting you know all the offerings we have at the high school. Other events, big event this weekend. If everybody's free, hosting wrestling. District 1 and 2 in St. Mary's is a big thing. We've never really done it this way. Nobody wanted it, and we raised our hand and said if we can bring some money and some recognition to our wrestlers and community and host an event here in town that celebrates our students and also brings some business to town, and we're going to take that opportunity and host an event this large. So that's Saturday. In other news, it doesn't seem like it, but spring sports starts in 2 weeks. We're definitely going to get a snowstorm the day before baseball, softball, and track starts. You can assure that. Also in other news, so everybody's aware, we've published it, but we're accepting nominations for our next St. Mary's High School Lumberjack Hall of Fame. They'll be the keynote speaker at graduation and be inducted into our Hall of Fame. So that is out there, soliciting those nominations currently. Also, we raised some money in conjunction with Timber Plus and St. Mary's Chamber of Commerce to purchase a mobile wood shop and construction trailer, so we can actually get our students out in the community doing different jobs mobily. And a very generous donation from a man from Orfino delivered us the trailer, also donated another $1,000 back to our students, that just has an appreciation for those construction trades. So it's all decorated up. We've probably 18 to 20, 25 different donors, stickers on the side of our van, so they're appreciated and can see their road to. Maybe you need some stairs built, or maybe you need a handicap ramp built, and our students will be more than willing to come to your home and take on those jobs. What else do we have? Mr. Riverick's woodshop classes are currently dressing up the school. They're building new frames for some motivational items to dress up the high school hallways. Excuse me. Last Thursday, I attended the Region 1 principals meeting in Coeur d'Alene, and the topics of discussion, major two, were safety and student enrollment, in particular dropping. And we're in the same boat as every school in Region 1. Everybody's losing students to online schools, and Dr. Wrench and I are in the process of developing some different procedures to keep our students in-house and to supply them with the same needs that they might reach out for online, and to keep our kids with us. As far as safety goes, a lot of great information shared from the largest schools to the smallest schools. We have a safety meeting on Thursday, which our local cooperators, all the EMS, first responders will be at, and so we can really kind of fine tune our processes and procedures when and if any sort of event happens on any of our campuses. Winter sports senior nights. Boys basketball senior night will be this Thursday. We hosted wrestling and girls basketball senior nights already. We hosted a band concert a couple weeks back. They were without an instructor for about a month and a half. And I appointed 3 students to be our instructors, and they taught the class along with the substitute teacher for about a month and a half. And the students pulled off an amazing concert. Just the utmost appreciation for what those 3 were able to do. Our BPA students actually left yesterday, right in the middle of the Super Bowl. So there were some angry folks that they were traveling to Boise, but they are in Boise currently competing in the state competition for business professionals in America with, it's a pretty big deal on the line. They can move on to nationals. So it's a big event, and they're about halfway through it as we speak. I think that's a busy month.
Yeah.
So, any questions for the high school?
With that job trailer, are they gonna be doing bids on stuff if somebody needs something built? Or is it gonna be like a donation, recommend you donate?
I think to start, it'll be a recommendation of a donation until we can kind of get, our goal is not to take business away from anybody in the community. The same with our new CTE shop and wood shop building. We don't want to take anybody's oil change business away, but if you want to donate to us to let our students practice, we would appreciate at least the cost of materials and our time.
Okay.
I know Miss Carson was saying something about needing some help in those hallways when we were there, saying that we need some help in those hallways. She's trying to keep all the clutter out and lacking the wood shop that she has now. That might be key to be able to communicate.
That could be great.
She was saying something about a lost and found need to be revamped. It'd be awesome.
Projects in-house.
Yeah, indeed. And just, again, my pillars are our community and leadership. And anytime we can get out into the community to help us out, I'm a lifelong lumberjack. So if we can leave our mark in our town, that's my goal.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hayburn, Miss Arcouche.
So we are always just a little bit busy at Hayburn, and we've survived several plagues in the last week or so. We were sending kids home with temperatures today, so I don't know. I hear that we're sharing with high school and middle school, so we teach the children to share. Yeah, it's great. Our last fire drill was early in January. We had one scheduled in February, but we got our wires crossed a little bit with maintenance, so we'll get one done in February. The kids are getting pretty good at getting out of the building quickly. The tricky part with Hayburn is we have lots of places where kids could be, like WIN groups or title groups or special education or the bathroom, and not everybody remembers to come out. So we don't do a lot of alternate. We try to just get out of the building and find the children. And we did pretty well this last time. We were out. We rang the bell at 8:25. We were back in by 8:30, and that is with tiny children. So they're pretty good. I was really impressed. I don't know. This is going to be a little education because we have some new board members. I want to talk just a minute about our Cultivating Readers project. That's the next thing on my board report. Before I became an administrator, I was an English teacher. So reading is really important to me. And I think it's super important in math, in CTE, in basically anything to be an educated, responsible adult. You should be able to read and comprehend, and you should be able to read fluently. Right? So reading is really, really important. When I first accepted the job, I got this email, I don't know, in like July from Jen Miller saying, we got this grant for reading. We need you to be in Post Falls for this training. And I was like, all right, I like reading. Reading's good. And I've had a lot of professional development in reading because I was an English teacher. So I wasn't super excited, except that I got to meet my staff and I was going to see what we were doing. So we went to this Cultivating Readers training, and it was excellent, like really good. It's like, oh, there's something to this. So the Cultivating Readers project is really bringing the science, the latest science, the best researched strategies on how to teach reading and the different little pieces of reading, and how to look at your data then and make changes to make sure that students are reading. And the really hard thing is, in schools, we can only worry about what we can control, right? So I can't control if they're reading at home. I can't control so many things about their life. If they're going to do their homework, I can't control who their friends are. I can't control the choices that they make, but what I can control is that we deliver the very, very best instruction. So we've been working with this Cultivating Readers grant. And when I first came to Hayburn, we had a system set up called switch groups. And in switch groups, the teachers would go through and we progress monitor every month, but every 6 weeks we would take a look at the progress monitoring and sort students into reading groups so that you were sorted into the groups with the students who are reading about where you're reading, and they used just basically the progress monitoring data for that. So when I got there and I started learning with the Cultivating Readers group, the first year was our readiness year, and it was just learning about the science of reading, what we were going to do. So we started calling our groups WIN groups instead of switch groups. WIN stands for what I need. So there's no stigma, no matter whose group you're in, no matter what you're working on, no matter what you're doing, you're there because this is what you need. And we all think differently and we all learn differently, and that's okay, right? So we changed to these WIN groups. Then our next year was our implementation, readiness, and then it was our kind of our introduction year. And that's when teachers really started to get involved. And the beauty of Cultivating Readers is it trained some of my expert teachers to not just be expert teachers, but to be coaches for some of the newer teachers. So we're having some sort of in-house professional development that is paid for through this grant. They pay for the extra hours for training. They pay the coaches for their time coaching. They pay the coachees for the extra time they're spending learning. And part of that process was to introduce PLCs, and that's a professional learning community. And it's not a new idea, but a professional learning community is a group of teachers that takes a dedicated amount of time to look at the instruction in classrooms, what the children are doing, and to kind of look at what do the children need? What do we need to change instructionally? What do we need to change in our focus? And so we organized our PLCs in grade levels, and we started following this rubric that Cultivating Readers gave us. And it was a very long and convoluted rubric. And we were all confused. Like we backed up like 3 or 4 times. Like, okay, we're going to figure this out and it's okay, right? Because we're all learning too. I feel like education is constant learning. If you're not learning as an educator, you probably picked the wrong field because it's just always learning. So then it's like, okay, PLCs, trying to wrap my head around it so I can lead my staff through it a little more effectively. And I got an email that said that Coeur d'Alene was hosting a big PLC conference in the summer. And so I went to Miss Holt's house and I said, so this is what we're doing, Cultivating Readers. And look, it's in Coeur d'Alene. Like you could be shipping us to Atlanta or to Hawaii, like Coeur d'Alene. You could get us there. That's easy. So the district paid to send a couple of people from Hayburn, a couple of people from the middle school, and all of Upriver went because of their school status. They got everybody to go. It was awesome though, wasn't it? Yeah. Right? So we go to this PLC conference, and I went with Jamie Spooner. We were looking at all the things we were doing with Cultivating Readers and all the things we were doing with our WIN groups. And we looked at the PLCs and we're like, all of these are telling us very similar things, and we think we might be doing the work 3 times instead of 1 time. So if you look at my report this year, this is our sustainability year, and we're trying to streamline this WIN and PLC process. And the PLC process asks 4 main questions. What do I want the students to learn? How do I know if they're learning it? What am I going to do if they're not learning it? And what am I going to do if they are learning it? And those 4 questions, any subject, any grade level, really important. You have clarity on what you want them to learn. How are you going to figure out that they really learned it? Because sometimes tests that you get with your books or with curriculum don't always align to what you're really trying to suss out, right? Even so, our assessments don't always align, our standardized assessments. So great. Now I know what I want them to learn. I know I'm going to figure that out. What am I going to do when they don't? Like, what are my alternatives? What do I need to look at? But then we can't forget those kids that are moving right along. What am I going to do if they do learn it? Because 100% of the time in my career in education, I've had a crew that didn't and a crew who did. I've never had 100% of both. Not once. So they're really good questions to ask. So we replaced the Cultivating Readers rubric with those 4 questions. And so now we're trying to streamline this PLC process and this WIN process. So instead of just sorting the students by test score, we're including more. Their lesson mastery data. Do they understand this unit, this chunk of unit? Because maybe you understood it great this month, but next month you need some remediation and you need to switch groups. We're looking at lesson mastery data. We're looking at assessment data in the classroom. We're looking at input from the whole team that works with the students to try to sort them a little more holistically. And then the beauty of this is it started to get us into math too. Even though this says Cultivating Readers, we're starting to use some of these processes in math as well to differentiate more in the classroom. Is it perfect? No, because there's a lot of things I can't control, including the tests. Although I tried really hard. I went to Boise they're working on reviewing the vendor for the IRI. That's the Idaho Reading Indicator, and it's the standardized test that's required kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. It's the law. Everybody's got to take it. But I complained a lot about the IRI. So when they asked for volunteers to go to work on different parts of this review, I volunteered, and I'm not the only one frustrated with it. But at the same time, I think it's important that we're just involved. Our voice is heard in North Idaho. I think Boise's loud, and I think North Idaho needs to be as loud as well. So I went down to Boise to do that. But anyway, our Cultivating Readers project, the whole thing that we've been doing is really bringing us more clarity on the science of reading. It's bringing us more clarity on how we can help kids. And it's not always going to show up right away in the test scores because I don't believe that the test is well aligned to what we're trying to do. But what it is showing up in is some of our fluency scores. What it is showing up in is you're going to see kids, I think, who are going to have a firmer foundation, and by the time they leave Hayburn are going to be able to read much more fluently. I think it's a process that's going to continue to show us growth. In March, we have like a nationally known literacy specialist named Lexi, unpronounceable last name with a lot of consonants and not a lot of vowels. She's great. We call her Lexi. No one knows her last name because it's really hard to pronounce. Anyway, Lexi's coming. She's been coming and doing demonstration lessons for us for the past couple of years. And this time we want her to come and observe our WIN groups and give us feedback on how we're doing. And what she told me the last time she was here, which is one of the coolest things she could have said, was I can see the shift in the teaching. It's becoming natural. They've got it. They're making the shift. I see so much more than I have seen before. And it's really not because I structured anything differently about her visit. I want it to be as organic as possible, because if I don't know what we need to fix, I can't fix it. So she's going to come in March and she's going to observe our WIN groups and give us some feedback on those to make sure we really are dialed in, because those are supposed to be like the intensive reading groups. And so she'll give us some feedback in our collaboration that day. She's coming the first Monday of March. So that will be exciting. And that gives us, another good 8 weeks or so to really implement her suggestions. And so we only have one more year after this, after our sustainability year. And I'm hopeful that all the things that we're doing are going to really be ingrained in our systems by the time we're done. We've worked really hard as a staff, and my staff is really good natured about it too, because I'll come in, I'm like, all right, guys, here we go. And they really are just so willing to do anything it takes for the kids. I can't say enough about how hard they've worked with this initiative and with the kids to try to make things awesome for the kiddos. Speaking of staff, our January staff of the month was Mrs. Davis. Our February staff of the month is Mr. Rogers, because fourth grade had a rough go this year. We had a teacher that had to step out, some medical issues, and they really ran through 3 fourth grade classes between the two of them. And I'm so proud of how much they stepped up and how they've kept all of the fourth grade afloat. So if you see them, express your appreciation, because they've really done a Herculean job. And it wasn't fair to put it on their shoulders, but they did a great job. If you look on the back of my board report, I have some data for you. And I learned, so we're really learning how to dig into data with our PLCs and our cultivating readers. And this is interesting. So I'm not like 100% thrilled with all the data, but I also understand January, none of the kids took much seriously when we were taking the tests. So I feel like our reading scores in kindergarten and first are pretty representative. I am interested, if you look at the third IRI versus third STAR, this is interesting. So the Idaho Reading Indicator, okay, this is the one that the state says we have to take. Thou shalt take this test. It is in the law, okay? The STAR is what we use for progress monitoring in third, fourth, and fifth for reading. Now, those kids who are getting 54% proficiency in IRI, I am not going to have 54% proficiency on the ISAT in third grade in reading. It's not going to happen. It does not align. It'll be less than the 38, but the 38 is going to be closer. And that's one of the things that I think the IRI is missing, is it's not predictive of, are we assessing the standards that we say we're going to test them on the ISAT. So that's interesting. So I think that 38% is going to be better. What we're finding is our kids don't have a lot of stamina. If a question is long, if they have to read and scroll past the end of the page to find the rest of the passage, they're done. If we have to do a multi-step math problem, where we have to read the question, do a problem, then go back and read the question, do another, we don't have stamina. So we're working on that. And you'll notice we're starting as early as kindergarten. I've asked all the teachers, the children have to learn how to memorize. Here's why. Do I think that I need to know my times tables all the time? No, I have a phone in my pocket. Everybody's got a calculator, whatever. But they shouldn't have to, number one. Like, I should be able to go to a grocery store and add up my purchases in my brain without my phone, number one. Number two, a lot of brain research tells us that when you learn something, you create a pathway in there. I may never use calculus again, and I pray that I don't, like real hard. But my brain built a pathway, and I've been able to use it for other things. And so I want to be building these pathways for these children so that they're able to hold on to more than a TikTok video worth of information, to more than a YouTube video worth of. I'm serious. That a lot of research is showing that that's the attention span we're working with, and that kids who have early exposure to that kind of stuff, they're not holding on to those sorts of things. It's a lot of work to read. Our brains are not naturally wired to read. Visual is much easier. This is hard work we're asking them to do, to switch from the digital to the analog. So what I'm hoping is that by creating these pathways with the memorizing, especially as early as kindergarten, that we will have better luck with the fluency. We're working on building our stamina with reading the whole problem, using test-taking skills, like read the question first, so that when you read the passage, you get more bang for your buck and you don't have to read it every time for the passage. So we're trying strategies like that too. So that's interesting in the reading. So what I really learned that was interesting was in the math. So I was looking at 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade math, and I was just like, oh, guys, wow. Need a cultivating math program. K and 1 say to tell you don't take too much, like don't be too proud of them because their test never changes and the kids have just learned how to take it. I say take it and be proud. But anyway, so I was digging into some of the math data with the 5th grade PLC team, and we learned that in STAR, the way they rank kids is out of 100, right? So if you're in the 60th percentile, out of 100 kids, you are at only about 40% did better than you. You're better than about 60 of the 100, right? You're right about there. They're not getting to proficiency. Like, they're not counting them proficient until they're like the 73rd percentile. And that's like the bottom of proficiency. And we're like, that's a high bar to jump over, STAR. Like, what in the world? Because the district, let's compare here. The district measure of proficiency and the state measure of proficiency is the 40th percentile. So we were all like, oh, that's harsh. And so we're not sure why that is. We haven't gotten to that point. Danny Blackwell and the teachers and I are sort of researching it. So I don't think we're as math illiterate as this may look, but this is what it's going to look like on ISAT. The ISAT math problems are tough. And so we've learned how just this past a month and a half ago, Danny gave us some directions on how to get some sample problems to really teach the kids how to even attack these, because they don't look anything like what's showing up in math curriculum or math books. It's a rigorous test, and it's supposed to be a rigorous test. So we'll see. I'll keep tracking the data and bringing it to you and learning more about it as I go and trying to share what I learn about it with you. It's not in any way to make an excuse for what the numbers look like. I just think it's important that we understand them. And it's also important to understand this is one test on one day. And honestly, we've all had the plague. So, I could come up with lots of reasons. Like there's barf and poop and snot and everything all over the place. Lice, it's joy. It's joy. Like I'm telling you, if the water turns to blood, I'm out. We've all been joking about the 10 plagues of Egypt. So it's been a thing. We've just been joking, and really, at one point we had 40% of our staff out, and Hayburn still ran. So did a lot of jump roping. A couple of other things that I think are important to note have escaped my brain. Hang on. What am I forgetting, guys? It happens. It even happens. Anyway, do you have any questions that I can answer about Hayburn and what's going on?
Nope. Yeah.
We're working on it. We're sure trying.
Comparing the two.
Yeah.
Seeing the increase and comparing to this year.
Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation, because I was looking at that like,
Why
What
is that?
I know.
Oh,
I've literally drawn a graph to
Well, I
go.
saw-
I was like,
I saw the IRI and the
Like,
stars.
what the
I'm
heck
like,
happened?
okay,
Or the
where do we
second
have a
grade
difference
is-
in
I saw
testing?
this. I just didn't know what this meant.
So,
Yeah, no, I knew what that
from
was.
your
It's
perspective,
different.
it helps.
Well,
So,
testing.
we were having the same conversation. I was like, you guys, I can't go to the board with this. And so we were having the conversation in PLCs, and Brian McManus is like, he's like, I'm gonna get into this, and so he just dug right on in, and we had really
Awesome.
good conversation about it. We are having our Title I Literacy Night on the 29th of February, Leap Day, so please join us. There'll be games, popcorn,
Send
water.
us
We did. It's in your. Oh, it's there.
She just hooked us up tonight. It's pretty awesome. Awesome.
So please join us because you'll see some of the stuff some of the science-based stuff that we're trying to share with families, so that kids can work at home on reading too.
Yeah, I went last year, and it's pretty cool to go
It's
around
fun.
and see what how the kids are learning and interact with kids and the parents, and yeah, it's
There's
very
a lot of
interesting.
involvement.
I got accused of being married to Carrie Titus too last time. I was there. Oh, your dad? No, we're just friends. So
Bridget, cultivating reader, this is year 3 that you're finishing, or 4? But
We're
this is
finishing year 3.
going into
There's
year 4.
1 year
Yeah,
left.
this is data mining.
Is that that's a grant for a 4-year grant for 4
Yeah.
years?
Okay.
Well, for 4 years through the state. The state has a bigger grant, I think, through federal grant. I want to angle though. I think our readiness year was iffy. I don't think they gave us as much as they could have, and I think that we've provided a lot of feedback about things, and they've asked us to pilot a lot of things. I'm gonna see if I can beg them for an extra year of support. See what I can do. It may not work, but I'm gonna try. Because it's been really good. It's been really good to be able to ask my teachers to do something and be able to compensate them for their professional time and expertise doing stuff.
Right.
So that's been nice to be able to do.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
all
thank
of
you
your
very
much. Thank you.
explanation. It's been really
Thank you very
If you
helpful.
ever have a question.
tell your staff thank you for stepping up to when everybody was out. Just
Oh.
give them a great big thank you
Yeah.
from the board, please.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was an incredible couple of days, and by incredible I mean I don't ever want to do it again. But I was really proud. I was really proud of
Sure.
how we made it work.
Doesn't go unseen for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to food service, Ms. Chafee.
So for this month, I did just did the free to reduce percentages. So Hebron is at 50%, Upriver is at 78%, middle school is at 43%, high school is at 40%. So our free and reduced percentages continue to be higher than last year. So that's good. It also means our meal participation is higher than last year. Although with all the illness, we've had a drop in that, but we're seeing that come back up. In February, I'm doing mandatory USDA training to prepare for the upcoming commodity foods order. So I order food through the USDA at this time of year for all of next year. So it's a good time for me to decide how much money we have an opportunity to put money towards a free fresh fruit and vegetable program. And so we put some of our commodity dollars that way. It's also a good opportunity to kind of look at the menus and see if we want to make any changes for next year. The USDA sometimes, and I think there's a few changes this year, makes different foods available. So it's a good time to refresh that. This is also the time of year I start looking at our usage for other suppliers, like our paper goods suppliers and our other food suppliers, milk suppliers, that sort of thing. One other thing that I didn't put on here, but I've been talking to the Head Start program for Upriver, and so we're just working towards getting that program going. We would need to start the CACFP program, which is Child and Adult Care something. So we're working towards that, and I feel really good that we're going to get that up and ready. April or May, I think, is when they want to start preschool. They're hoping to start preschool at Fernwood. So just want to let you know we're right along there with them, and we're in the process of getting all of that going. And that's all I had.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maintenance, Mr. Gilmore.
Good evening to you all. I'd like to thank the board for participating in our tour of the facilities. I know, Jody, you've done it before, probably multiple times, if I recall.
Yeah.
But
So-
yeah, it's good to see you get familiar with what we're kind of up against on a daily basis there. Like I say, we're coming up on a 100-year-old anniversary for our Hayburn building. So it's,
That's-
there's challenges there.
You're for sure that's this year?
It's,
24?
the plaque on the side of the building says 1924, so
Okay.
I'm thinking that's close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know exact dates, but yeah, I'm going by that plaque that was put there and
Well, I think you
dated.
need to throw glitter up and everywhere.
Oh, I so love glitter. Yeah.
Lots of glitter.
I always think that glitter should be made illegal in school.
Understood.
Yeah. So our daily projects, I know you probably get tired of hearing the monitoring and maintaining heating systems, but that's an ongoing thing. We touch those on a nearly daily basis. Our custodial absences, we don't have a substitute except tonight. You did approve one, and Dale will be on board soon, hopefully. So that'll help us out. The fix-it requests keep coming in. We get to those as best we can, and that can be anything and everything. So seasonal projects, winter sports activities, we're, believe it or not, nearing the end of that. This weekend's wrestling tournament, it's a big day with that many people in the building. So we'll see if we can get that covered and get through that. The winter weather hasn't been too bad. We still have our snow and ice at times. Our HVAC systems, that's again one of the ongoing things, changing filters and that kind of thing. We've got a couple of our units at our high school that are giving us a little bit of trouble. We've been with McKinstry techs on that and getting parts ordered to get replacements on that. That's under warranty still, so hopefully it's not an indication of things to come. But hopefully it's just a couple of units. So. Special projects, we've got a sewer pump lift station out at the high school that's as old as the high school, so you can imagine what we're up against there. I'm coming up against obsolete parts I can't get anymore. I've been working with a pump company in Spokane, and we're starting to get a few numbers in. I don't like them, but it's going to be extremely expensive in my, a little more than what I expected. So we're seeing what we can do for a workaround on that and looking at other options. We'd received new high jump pads for the high school track. That was one of the things that arrived there. So yeah, a couple of weeks we'll be started with the track season. The fire inspection with our local jurisdiction had taken place some time ago. We've been working on that. There's a list of, I wouldn't say violations, or recommendations by the fire department. And we've been working on that. I think we got the high school pretty well wrapped up. I've been in contact with Chief Estep this week, trying to get a day that works so we can get him through the buildings and get some of those things checked off. I'd say some of these things, it's a different environment. Getting bids or response from people recently, I don't know if it's just a change of times or what, but normally they would send somebody out as a representative on some of these projects, like the high school. I got some toilet partitions that had just been a nightmare. So try to get parts. They say, oh yeah, we can get parts. And then they come back and say, well, can you give me some measurements? So we go that route. And then can you give me pictures? And I get the pictures. And then they say, well, that doesn't exist anymore. Can you give me some more measurements? And so we're working around a temporary fix right now. And then hopefully this summer we can get some replacement stuff in there, because those are as old as the high school as well. So I think we've replaced one of the restrooms, but the other one is in need as well. So other than that, yeah, it's just kind of day by day. So that's all I've got. Any questions?
I gotta tell you, I was impressed with walking around with how much you knew about that school, man. Everything you had.
Yeah, thanks for bringing
To a
us
T,
around.
we really appreciate
I'm
that.
still learning.
And a lot of alignment.
Yeah.
With some old toilets, man.
Yeah.
Some old
Yeah,
toilets.
it's a lot of original stuff. So yeah, we're working on getting our priorities and lists for summer projects and whatnot as well. So
Thank you.
as I say, you've seen the rubric that of things, and that's a fluid thing, because sometimes we got to move things around when things raise their ugly heads. So, yeah.
That's all right. Well, you keep us, good job keeping things going.
Yeah,
So
you
thank
do.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep, thank you. All right, patrons, I'm gonna butcher the last name.
Memoni.
Joseph Mimoni, protecting the innocence of children.
I have my whole statement written here, so I can hopefully speed through it. Hello, my name is Joseph Maimoni, a resident here in St. Mary. I'm here today to express my concerns about the unrighteous indoctrination finding its way into schools all across our nation. I do not want this sort of influence to infiltrate our schools here. The following is a letter my wife and I have prepared and attached are over 100 signatures of endorsements from members within our community. The following is the letter. The morality of the United States has drastically changed in the course of a single generation. This change can be exemplified by the radical ideology commonly found within our public schools. There seems to be a concerted effort driving this transformation from the top down. The purpose of the statement and petition is to highlight the community's majority disapproval of this transformation. By signing this petition, signatories do endorse the just cause of protecting the innocence of the children when in the care of the public school. Our community believes it is important, number one, to maintain a school curriculum that promotes truth, decency, and traditional values. We do not support entities or individuals that actively work to subvert or that do not align with these values. Number two, to protect the innocence of children, safeguarding them from undesired influences that could arise within the school system. These influences emerge in various forms from different individuals and entities. This requires that the school system have people in place who recognize this as a real threat. One must not interpret this to mean Christianity or religion should be taught in school. To the contrary, that is the job of parents and the church. Instead, we want it abundantly clear that our school curriculum must not undermine or contradict our Christian conservative values. Adhering to this principle, the school system would not conflict with the parents' moral beliefs. Number three, to preserve the parents' God-given rights of informed consent concerning the well-being of their children, mind, body, and soul. This is the parents' sacred right and responsibility. We do not support policy or individuals that violate these rights. Number four, to support and promote education that emphasizes basic areas of learning: English, math, history, and science. We do not support unrighteous indoctrination in any form. Diligence on the part of the school board and faculty must be exercised to recognize and eliminate any radical ideology-based material disguised within these basic areas of learning before ever entering the classroom. Also, any school grants that have stipulations that conflict with these values should not be selected and rightfully declined. Number five, the democratic process must be harnessed and to ensure that the voice of the taxpayers within the community are heard loud and clear by the school board and the school district as a whole. We must not allow the voice of the community to be silenced or marginalized. The lives of the children are at stake. That concludes the letter from the community. I would like to mention I have met with the superintendent, Teresa Wrench, and she explained how the school district is working hard to remove unwanted materials found within the new school books. It sounds like a tall order, as even the math books have propaganda-like messaging. Teresa said they are in the process of removing all such messaging. It appears the school district is working to provide an education for the students free from doctrine. So this letter I have read, with support from many in our community, should serve as encouragement for these honorable efforts. I would like to raise the question, are there any known alternative providers that offer school books that are already aligned with our community values? In closing, I would like to thank the superintendent, the school board, and teachers for their efforts in providing education instead of indoctrination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. moving on to the superintendent's report. Fancy clicker.
Yeah, try this out. All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Duckling Ranch.
This is just a fun picture from this week. Jody Hendricks got to speak at Upriver in Karina's 5th, 6th grade class.
Yes.
Correct? And I don't want to steal your thunder, Jody, but I think it was an opportunity for you as a successful logger here in our community to share your story about the importance of reading and writing and math and science and social studies.
Yeah, I tried to. She approached me a while back about speaking up there, and there was a couple students that were going to quit school, almost the next day and go to work for their parents in the woods and not continue with school. And I told them about my story, about wanting to quit when I was a senior in high school, and I had a teacher talk me into staying in school, and I'm glad I did. And who would have thought 37 years later, I'm sitting where I'm sitting. I am so focused on trying to get these kids a good education and get them out there. All the oh geez, just lost my train of thought. The whatever's out there, to interest them, their abilities or their opportunities. Sorry, there are opportunities out in front of them that we didn't have in school. Back in the day when we were in school, it was like, you need to go to college, you need to go to college, you need to go to college. Well, a lot of people in my class went to college, and they spent a lot of money, and some of them are using it, some of them aren't. I chose not to go to college. I joke what I found the school of Fred, and which was the old school house. And I think I still probably, I'm still trying to graduate from that school, even though the individual's dead now, but I'm still trying to graduate from that school. But there's a lot of life lessons learned in those situations. But anyway, back to the kids. Told them about my life history and stuff, and about how there isn't a day that I go by that I kind of wished I would have paid more attention at school, from reading to writing to arithmetic to different things. And I got I got a nice thank you card back from Mrs. Stoll, and 18 thank you letters from them little kids. And it jerked a tear or two reading those things, because to me it was heartfelt. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming out. It was excellent, just excellent.
Good. So anyway, that's the story behind that.
Yep. More highlights, right? Our students, and you saw tonight and you heard from them tonight, and they just continue to be a highlight of that good education we want to provide them, and giving credit to our staff and parents, right, for supporting their education and their learning and their talents, and to see what we saw tonight as they're becoming successful, young, responsible citizens. This is a few events that have already happened and some upcoming events. Jill mentioned the facilities visits this past week, and then we have an architect coming. I'll speak more to that in a few slides down. And we started gathering input for, I get to gather input from the high school leadership team this week, so that'll be fun. More happenings on the horizon. The 26th, we'll have a special board meeting, and I'll talk a little bit more about this topic in a couple slides. Math committee meeting. Again, I'll talk a little bit about the math curriculum and the process, a couple slides down here. On the horizon, talking about our policy advisory committee that we had mentioned starting after the reorganization of the board. I'll talk more about that in a few slides down. And also on the horizon, a digital platform many of you have heard for our board agendas and minutes, along with our policies, called Simbly. We're starting to get a little bit of training, and timeline could be late spring, early summer, depending on how fast we are at adopting this virtual digital platform. Fair enough?
Gonna be fast learners.
Tan always smiles bigger than everybody when we
Well,
say
she's over there. She's over there watching the videos and Simply's building the templates.
She's so excited.
Yeah.
I'm sure. That's enough for me right there. I'm
Streamlining. Be a little more efficient. All right, math committee and adoption process. I'm going to speak more to the next slide. This is just a sampling of the thorough and extensive process we've put in place so that anyone that has questions or concerns are welcome to attend any of the meetings. They're open to the public. And you can find the minutes and notes on our website. And anyone is also welcome to come up to the school district and view the different instructional materials. So this is some of the criteria we're using. It's an evaluation tool that the parents on the committee and the teachers on the committee are using. We're in the middle of a pilot right now, which means we're trying one of the instructional materials in the classroom for about 6 weeks. The parents on the committee can study and follow along at home while the teachers are using the textbook in the classroom. And you heard a little bit of the, I guess, concerned or awareness of the last bullet there, critical race theory content or social emotional learning content entering into the math, particularly right now, looking at the math textbooks. So what we're learning, and it answers the patron's question a little bit, is when we go out and look at these publishing companies, they are publishing for the nation, for hundreds and thousands of school districts. So pretty much we're going to find this content in our textbooks. However, in talking to different school districts and with the math committee, we have the opportunity to manage and mitigate and adjust accordingly. Right, so it works for St. Mary's. So the procedure we're trying out with the math committee right now, and as it goes well, we can replicate that with our other curriculum. And that is first to bring attention to these two content, critical race theory and social emotional learning. Work on defining that together. There's a lot of different definitions out there. So the math committee is working on coming up with a definition. Then giving some really specific examples of what does that content mean and look like. And some parents and staff have helped us with that. What that did was it allowed, now that we're using the textbooks in the classroom and trying them out, we have asked parents while they're studying along with us at home and teaching the book in the classroom is to be able to record and cite different content that might be appearing that's related to this critical race theory or social emotional learning. Then when we come back to our math meetings, we're able to, Principal Carson and myself are able to compile this extensive list where we might see that content in the math book that we may recommend forward for adoption. That lets us then, as a staff, declare, commit to avoiding that content in the math book and looking for alternative, appropriate math problems to still teach the necessary math skill or concept. That's the process we're undertaking. And then looking to replicate that with the other curriculum. When you talk to the teachers, I mean, they, as well as the patrons, we want a book that also is aligned to the standards, has a lot of good practices, is usable, and works for the teachers and the kids so they can teach math. And the kids can leave that teacher and have that grade level math skills and content. That's where we're at. We have a meeting what did I say? 23rd.
Math committee, 27th.
Yeah. 27th. So that is the ending of our first pilot. It was about 6 weeks.
The
And
23rd, Dr. Lynch,
is when it ends.
End the
Correct.
pilot.
Correct.
And then you
So
start
that-
the second pilot.
Well, then we'll come back on the 27th as a team, reevaluate, and then there is a second book to pilot for another 6 weeks.
Well, right now you're in the stages of defining CRT and SEL.
We've defined it on our rubric at this point, and we gave some examples. So now when we're using the book in the classroom and parents can be at home studying and following along, we're citing and recording if we see any of that content come up. So we can compile a list
So
of
my
what
question,
to avoid and then find an alternative math problem.
you guys are going through each lesson then and finding that? Is that what you're saying, or?
Right now, we're using we've landed on a unit to pilot and try.
Okay.
And so
So
that's
just in
where
that
we're
unit.
looking. That's where we're looking to record and cite. And then if that process goes well, we'll be able to continue replicate that process with the other curriculum. I talked about the Renew America Energy Grant. RAS is the nickname. That's that federal grant, $14 million that was awarded. Holt House gets credit for that. And we're in the process of the stages to be awarded that money and see those projects come through. So the 14 million is meant to help upgrade our aging facilities, right? And the big projects that they're going to tackle for each of the schools this summer is the envelope project, some of the drainage, windows. That's mostly envelope projects. Then the following summer, McKinstry and the grant is swinging back through all the schools to update the heating, air, ventilation systems. And you saw that and that need. Now, when McKinstry was out here with us, a concern emerged. It's called the Community Benefits Plan. It's one piece of the grant that's required. And there was a section in the Community Benefits Plan, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, that people didn't like. So in response, what we're doing is we have a team working with McKinstry to rewrite the Community Benefits Plan so that it fits the legal requirements, but works for St. Mary's. And for example, we're looking for equal opportunity where the contractor seeks subcontracting jobs from our local businesses. Equal opportunity. Now, what we did was we've scheduled a special board meeting February 26th where McKinstry and the team will be here to share the revised version of the Community Benefits Plan to see if that fits St. Mary's better. That's an update on that.
Will you have a copy of the
Yes.
before?
Yes.
And so we can see the differences and
Correct.
compare and contrast.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's a good point.
That was a home run.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Excited about it. Policies. We have over 490 policies. That's a lot of policies. And I think what I shared that after the reorganization, we wanted to pivot a little bit and shift from the method of the 3 readings to forming a small superintendent policy committee, really to speed up the process. We have 490 to look at. And so I was hoping to have some parents through the 2 input meetings, but that didn't happen yet. So I'm going to reach out to principals, put some feelers out there to find a couple parents that want to be on the committee. We have a staff member. It'll be a principal. And then what'll happen is, depending on the series, we're reviewing and amending. For example, if it's facilities and maintenance, I'll bring in the director of facilities and maintenance, Joe Gilmore. If we're looking at the series, what's another maintenance, or I'm sorry, business, then I would bring in Danette Cordell to help us review and amend those, for example. So there end up being a couple staff members. One will be consistent, one will rotate them based on expertise in the series that we're covering. A couple parents and then myself. And the idea there is to kind of follow a model we used when we were writing our 3 library policies. We brought a little team together, reviewed, studied, revised, made sure it matched legal, and then it worked for St. Mary's. And then we brought those 3 policies forth to the board, and it seemed to be really successful. So that's a little bit of what we're looking to replicate here, is having that committee that can review, study, revise, make sure it's legal and it works for St. Mary's. What it means, we'll probably talk to the committee about getting legal assistance. Still with legal assistance, doing some of that research for us to find out which policies are required by federal or state law, and make sure we address that series first. When roughly, if we're reviewing upwards of 50 policies over a 3-month period, that could take us 2 years to get through all of our 490 policies.
By that time, things will change. And then you'll have to go through.
And it will be
again.
right back around again.
It will be
So in the first 6 months, we were able to alone review 19.
We need to go up that to 50.
So
I think that committee will be definitely helpful,
yes,
productive,
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah. So we'll go through. Ideally, we'll go through required first, and then recommended policy that matches that we want and need for St. Mary's. And then there's some that we may be able to just bring to the board and say, can we expire these and get it to a more manageable number that we can truly stay on top of. That's where we're at with policies. Then we're in the works of updating our strategic plan. And typically it's a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. So St. Mary's has had a 5-year strategic plan in the past. And so we've run some input meetings with the staff, and we had 2 were invited. Well, we did community and families. Small turnout, yet the people that showed, we were able to have rich conversations and certainly share information, and small enough where people's voices were heard and we captured the input. So this link here is where you can see all the input. So between the input sessions, we've had 3 meetings, or people being able to give their input on the survey. That was about 40 people so far have responded. We have a running tab under our website, under teaching and learning, where you can read the input.
Awesome.
Or anyone can, for that matter. And so I just gave a little bit of an examples that are coming through, or some of the patterns that are starting to emerge. So we ran a protocol with the goals. What do you want to keep? What do you want to strike out? What do you want to add, or what do you want to revise? Then we went to the second column, action steps to meet those goals. What do you want to stop? What do you want to keep? What do you want to revise? What do you want to add? So here's some examples. Goal 1 is achievement in math and language arts. People have mentioned also include academic achievement in social studies and science, and then find a way to measure that. Goal 2, we all know the goals. It's a quiz first. Was expand college and career readiness. It's been mentioned, do we want to switch the order or keep the order? We're always going to strive for college as well as career readiness. Goal 3 has stayed the same so far. And you'll see all the goals. People have asked the goals to be kept. If anything, they offered up some revisions. Goal 4 is a little tricky to see. However, they asked us to break it in. Some people have asked us to break it into 2 goals. Improve communication with the community and parents. And then another goal, improve communication with staff. Separate those out. There's some examples. There's more input. We had roughly 20-ish at the first intersection, less than 10 at the other one, plus 40. So it's close to 100 people that have given input that we've captured. And you can find it at that link. This is a little examples, some examples. Some of the action steps, most of people have said keep, and then these were a few to consider adding. So for goal 1, you have academic achievement. So they talked about adding other enrichment activities, electives, continue to grow the CTE classes, 7 through 12. That's goal 2. For goal 3, when we talk about safe, healthy, inviting environment, include facilities as part of that safety goal. Being consistent in the behavior expectations for our students as well as responses to the interactions. In terms of communication, some of the input has been to have like a master calendar and a monthly newsletter by school as well as by the district. Then we went through how to revise or update our mission statement. So this was some of the traits or some of the traits that have shown through, and then they let us wordsmith it. The big one was the skills and knowledge. So kids we graduate successful adults, swapping out adults and adding community members or productive citizens. Just being more
Civic minded.
Yeah. Civic minded. And then in terms of knowledge and skills, some of the input has been to expand on those knowledge and skills like responsibility, confidence, compassion, curiosity. Those are some of the examples. Then the last piece was able to get less input on this just with time being a factor. Coming up with 4 to 5 values that SD41 wants when they're making decisions. What do we truly believe in? And trying to identify those. And these were some of the values that have emerged. And sometimes you'll see school districts where they'll write, so we believe in a safe and secure environment, for example. Or we believe in holding adults and students accountable for their actions. Stuff like that. That's what I got on the input so far. Yes, sir.
I just had a thought. Back on the policy piece, there's 490 policies. I've read them all. Would it be possible that we put some of that, maybe there's some policies in there that would fit nicely into a course or some of the curriculum, say with those seniors or the ASB students as a project to review and provide some input to a teacher, you know, obviously as a peer or as a guide, just to give them some of that experience as in a professional setting, management of a organization, so they have a little bit of that. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be like the human resources or any of that type of thing, but would there be some opportunity in there to say, hey, take a look at a dozen of these, or whatever that appropriate number for the time that they have.
But I like that idea.
Just a thought.
Well, because if we get some legal support to say these are the required ones, and then usually like sections will be highlighted and say this is where you get to customize this for St. Mary's, and we can give that guidance to a group of high school students, for example. Yeah, I'm gonna write it down. Look into it. What else do I got? Oh yeah, I'll switch gears here a little bit. It's mid-year. These are our strategic and superintendent goals at this point. And in the green, you've seen this now. These are our performance targets, right? So typically our big boulder goals stay, and our performance targets, as our students continue to grow and achieve, change each year. So one of my goals is to share a data point more regularly throughout the year. So this is mid-year. And it might be a little not super clear yet, but the idea is that these are our goals, and I'm going to share a few data points so we start to get familiar with where our students are at and where we want them to go. And then what you heard tonight, when you hear from the principals and the staff, that's where the data points get more specific. And some of the programs or strategies that they're using in the classroom that then contribute back to our big goals and big data points. Here we go. K3, this is the early literacy. So this past year, about 54% of our K through 3 kiddos were literate ready. You asked about kinder. Full-time kinder started in 2019. So, and I don't have that percentage, but I looked it up. It was around 54% when full-time kinder started. We've dipped a little. Then what you're going to notice in this current year, those bars right now, that's our mid-year early literacy results. We're back on the rise. And we're on track to meet or exceed our end of the year results. So some of that you could say, like Bridget shared, like these are big data points, so we won't necessarily know why. But then when you hear from their principals and they talk about like first teachers getting good at the practice of running full day kinder, and then you start to see the students' results rise. Math, and I'm learning the assessment. So the state tests kinder and first for math. And the test remains the same. So for whatever it's worth, these are the results of our kinder first graders and how ready they are in math, in their math fundamentals, if you will.
So
We dipped a little.
Question back to the statistic for 21-22, is that end of year, and this is compared to
end of year,
22-23 end of year.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all as of last year, not our mid.
Well, I'm going to show you mid-year. Here's our mid-year.
Okay.
So it's given like a
Background
reference
in the-
point.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So now the bar, this is our mid-year data point.
Okay.
And yeah, so on the rise, which is a good thing, and already exceeded our end of the year target. Switching gears a little bit to college and career readiness. So we're hanging with the state levels. We'd like to see an increase. And then tonight is a great example of, some testimony that what's happening at the high school seems to be working, and we should see these results continue to rise.
Wow.
Now, the kids that are going to online school, does that drop our percentages of graduation? Or do they still get
No,
counted when they graduate through that program?
Yeah, good question. Since it should not count against us. If they dropped out, if they enroll in another school, that's okay.
Right.
Good question. And I was going to add something else. Oh yeah, college and career readiness. How is the state defining college and career readiness? They look at the percent of students who score proficient or higher on the state exam at the end of the year. They look at how many students are a CTE, career tech, education pathway completer, like the seniors that you heard tonight. They'll be a completer. They look at dual enrollment, kids, the percentage of kids enrolled in AP classes, the percentage of kids that are taking higher math classes. That's all part of the formula to calculate the percentage of students college and career ready. That's how the state's defining that. Plus you have the graduation rate. So this is our now grade 3rd through 12th that take the end of the year state assessment in language arts. So at the end of last year, 43% of our students were at or above. Mid-year, on that same type of exam, 33%. So there's a little bit of a drop. However, on our star reading, the blue, if I took an average of that, I think that was 47% of our students showing at or above. So on track to meet our end of the year target to see 53% of our students at or above or more, of course. A new data point is the orange bar. We're looking to track growth. Right, so that's a good way to know, to start to identify what are some of those. There's always one in the crowd, man.
Do we have to put your phone in the basket?
Will you go sit by that student over there? Train of thought. Oh yeah.
You're talking about
The orange
Growth.
bar.
The orange bar.
So it's really important that we want to identify those instructional practices that are working for students. And you hear like a Bridget say every month the teachers are looking at student results. So tracking growth is one way to know, hey, this practice is working. And as some kids aren't at grade level yet. And so if we're tracking their growth and they made an individual goal, it helps also motivate and keep them successful. Hey, look at, you're growing 1 year or more. You can continue to grow in 3 years. You are going to be at grade level or above. So we're starting to track that. This will be the first year we have the growth data, meaning are they on track to make 1 year's growth or more for 1 year in school? So that's about the percentage right there. We'd like to see that much higher as we go forward. Math. At the end of last year, 28% of our students were at or above. Mid-year, when they took an exam that looks like the state exam, 17% were at or above. Then you look at our STAR results. Those showed more promise. And it showed that 44% of our students were at or above, exceeding our end of the year target. Now, when the school principals and the teachers look at this by class and by student, they'll have a better understanding of how reliable is the test and what instructional practices are working for the students. And that's what you hear when you hear their principal reports. And then that's contributing to our overall results. Then there's the orange bar is the growth. So again, we want to start identifying practices that will support students in growing 1 year or more. And then over a course of time, catch up to grade level. The purpose of showing this data is just to start to get really familiar with our goals and expectations, our playbook. And the purpose is to start reviewing the student stats so that we become more familiar. And you heard tonight like some questions. We always want to be able to know where our kids headed. Those are our goals and expectations. Where are students at? Let's look into some of the stats, statistics. And what are we doing to see our kids improve and achieve? And those are some of those action steps. End of report. Oh no, that's for later.
Done?
Psych, I'm done.
All right. So, moving on to Jay, Idaho School Board Association activities. We got Day on the Hill, February 19th and 20th in Boise. Board Development Workshop, March 21st, 2024. Idaho Law Seminar, April 22nd and 23rd in Boise. So put them on the dates, calendars. Amended budget 2023, 2024, and 2024, 25 budget timelines.
That's in tab K. I'm gonna let Jeanette Cordell, who loves public speaking, but our expert
That's up.
business manager, speak to our budget cycle.
Yeah, this is the budget timeline. It's just an overview for that from now until June when we have the budget hearing. In February and March, we go over amended budget. And usually that's at the February, March meeting. It's a quick overview because it was the board that approved the proposed budget the prior June. Most of you weren't involved for that, so we thought we would do a budget workshop. to go into a little more detail on how it was developed and how we changed it, or the updates for this year. Because when you do a budget proposal back in June, you're estimating your revenue, your students, your enrollment, your staff, and everything. So now we have a better look at how it is, and so we will amend the budget accordingly. So we thought we'd do a workshop either on the 26th or the 4th, March 4th. Those are dates you already have in your calendar to do something, so we'll kind of tag on to that and go over that, so then you can approve the budget at the March meeting. So you'll get the information in the workshop, and then we can just do a quick overview of the March meeting, so you can approve it then. Are you going to decide which date would be best?
Time-wise, probably February 26th. That's when we're gonna share the revised community benefits plan. That meeting shouldn't take too long, so that might be the appropriate time to add a budget
So we do it
workshop onto the
after?
agenda.
What day is the 26th on?
It's a Monday.
Monday.
So we would just do it after.
It just would be a part of the one big special meeting.
Okay.
We plan to start at 5.
5 or 5:30.
It's not, I think it's 5:30. We've been trying to at least go as late as 5:30.
Is that open to the public, if I may ask?
These meetings are
Yeah,
open to the
yeah,
public.
they're all open to the public. The only thing that's not open is executive session, so yeah,
I didn't hear that, oh, that was a workshop.
yeah, workshop.
This will be a workshop, so they can be involved, is what you're saying? Questions and dialogue?
Well, it won't be involved, they can sit in, but the
This
community
isn't,
won't be
this isn't a
involved.
discussion.
Correct.
This is just going to be a workshop for us.
Board work,
Sorry,
yeah.
that's confusing. I just want to make sure.
There's no
it's a-
action items. There's no voting being
Yep.
done at it.
It'll be more conversational, interactive with that as we learn the item by item or expenditures and allocations. And that's setting us up then when we're developing our 24-25 budget.
She's good.
That'll just set us up that when we're amending our budget, but also when we're developing our 24-25 budget, late spring. And then March 4th, sorry, that's when you get a board workshop on input around the strategic plan. That's your session. So we've give staff, parents, residents, community members have had a chance to give input. And so March 4th is your board workshop to give input on the strategic plan.
So also in March, with the March 11th regular board meeting at River School to approve the amended budget. I also placed the timelines of when it has to be posted by statute, so 10 days prior. So on March 1st, I'll post the amended budget summary on the website, and then the following Wednesday, it'll be in the Gazette, so then you can approve that at the March 11th board meeting. Also, at the March 11th board meeting, we do ask that you set the following year's the budget hearing date, which is in June. By statute, we have to approve that because we have to let the counties know by April 30th on what that date is when they send out notices of all the budget hearings for the different taxing agencies. They put that on that notice. April 8th is a regular board meeting. We'll probably have some proposed budget discussions for next year. Some different things that happen in April. We get our renewal information for our insurances, so that tells us how much that will increase for the following year. We'll also have the post-legislative tour, so when legislature gets done, the State Department's finance people come around and tell us how it's going to affect our funding, so we can help build our budgets. So that'll be in April. You have the annual law conference in April, and then the 30th is the deadline to notify the county a budget hearing date. April and May, to be determined, we'll have some more budget workshops for next year, so we can build upon, so you guys get all the information you need for the budget hearing. May 13th is our regular board meeting. So then we'll have those budget workshops so that I can post a proposed budget summary statement by May 31st. So then we can have our budget hearing on June 10th. So we'll have a lot of meetings. to go
Just one
over
meeting a
and
month.
prepare. Staff will have, yeah, it's pretty intense on some of this stuff.
But this happens every so many years that we're.
Every
budgeting's
year.
every-
No,
I know
this is
budgeting's
every
every
year.
But I'm saying we're
Yeah.
kind of combining this with
Right.
plan, involvement, all the things. So this is
Oh,
like,
just
Year
one
for
meeting a
all
month?
of you.
And it's nice because the strategic plan gives us a sense of what are some of those common goals and priority action steps, and then you line the money with the goals and actions in the plan. That's part of it. So it dovetails nicely.
That's just a timeline of what's.
Awesome.
ahead.
To come.
awesome.
Thank you. All right, moving on to L, student enrollment, open enrollment, student discipline.
Do they have all the forms? This is just I guess almost a monthly update of being able to track student enrollment. And you'll see for the most part, enrollment has stayed the same. Where there was a decline from the start of the year is mostly transpired at the high school level. We lost about 38 kids since the start of the year.
38.
Yeah, so we lost 33 by November and 15 recently for the second semester. You heard Chris Asbury talk about that a little bit from his Region 1 meeting, that it seems to be a pattern in our neighboring school districts at the high school level. Some of the reasonings they learned in their exit meetings with the students were they're transferring to online schools. Some ready to accelerate the process and graduate. Some to make up course credit recovery. So that lets them fast track a little bit. Some struggling emotionally in a face-to-face setting. And those are some of the top reasons. We're working with IDLA, Idaho Digital Learning Academy, and Brad Patzer, with ways we can keep our students enrolled in our system and let them be and accommodate if they need digital learning for a while, so that we can retain our kids and provide an instructional pedagogy that they need.
Do we know
So we'll
what
keep you posted on that.
grade levels these are occurring at? All
Yeah.
across the board, or mostly? what
Yeah, I would have thought
grade?
mostly upperclassmen. It's all across the board. Mostly, yeah, across the board, pretty even. Maybe the lowest is freshmen. And then open enrollment is a new, I think, 2022 and 2023 open enrollment legislation. So it's just shifted a little bit in how it's implemented. So what that means is this other little chart on your next page is open enrollment numbers. And you can see the number of students who have transferred in to the different schools. Some within each school, like Heyburn and Upriver and Heyburn. And some from other counties transferring into our schools. And through an open enrollment application, districts now post, which is on a page further back, the space that we have at each of the grade levels, at each of the schools. And so if people want to transfer in, if there's space, and as long as behavior and attendance checks out, then we accept them. So that's where you see that 37 students have their through open enrollment. Just a little data point. The last couple of pages, it's a little bit of discipline. There's not a lot of sense to make of it yet. We'll make more sense of it in time, but schools keep track of different offenses. Like you can see, disrespect and inappropriate behavior infraction have been pretty high in the last couple of years. So that let's principals and teachers get together and talk about what other practices and habits do we want to implement at the school site so that drops.
When is this from?
November to now.
So what is the difference between the two charts on?
One is the year before, just to see a little comparison. 2023.
Where is it?
As a-
That's
and then
2023.
The one on the front is 2024.
Okay. Okay.
Those are some information really like a school principal and their teachers would look at and start to make a game plan on behavior expectations and what practices to put in place to see that, and then track that again to see that that's dropping. And those data points and different instructional practices that they implement, we should see those offenses drop, but then suspension rate drop, and then you can see how that supports kids feeling safe and attending school. Goal 3, and then you can see how that relates to improvement academically.
Huh. There was more offense types on 2023 than there was in this one.
So that would be principals and teachers being able to identify that on a more specific finite level, like students, and where they see that drop, what practices that they have in place to support that decrease.
That's why we have less now, percent, or
That would be the idea, is so they would be able to speak to, hey, that used to be high, and so we targeted that area or that behavior, and then we put this plan or this practice in place, and now we saw it drop, so it's working.
Okay.
For example, like, like tonight, like they do the students of the month, like finish it.
100%.
Or like increased supervision, for example.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Good on that. Moving on to M, career technical education shop construction process.
Yes. I wanted to give an update because I know we're going to be going back out for bid for the new CTE shop.
Okay.
Since we were awarded the 1.3 million in the grant. And the design model wasn't enough information. So we're having an architect, Corey Trapp from LTA Architects, visit our site Wednesday. And you see he's got 40 years of experience. He comes highly recommended from some of our local neighboring school districts. He's done some projects or designs, I should say, for like Boundary County, Lake Pend Oreille, Kellogg, Coeur d'Alene, Lakeland. And what we've asked is kind of going for a hybrid model, like maybe not the full hard blueprint and more information than the design build. So Corey will come out and he calls it a concept master planning that will have the framing, the pole barn framing, but also will add some programming detail, like our electricity, and we'll also add some engineering detail, like our foundation. So 2 things are going to happen. We have a geotechnical report date. I think he's coming out. So Corey would have that report. Then Corey's also going to visit the site with a team of people and get a better understanding of location, foundation, and the programming, like the equipment and electricity. From there, he would design this floor plan. All right, so now it have the pole barn framing. It'll have some engineering specs in it, and it'll have some programming specs. And then I'm gonna have a team look at it, like a Seth, a Mike LaPlante in the community, Principal Asbury, and the auto shop teacher, Eric Cummings. And say, does this look like this is enough information to go out for bid? And if it is, then we'll go out for bid. And it'll be a request for proposal. And that will have the design, and we'll ask for some other criteria, right? So they'll have the design, they'll try to fit it the lowest bid, but also we'll ask for their profile and their experience, their organization, their methods, and we could interview them if we wanted as well. That sound like a plan?
What?
Definitely a lot further than we
Yeah.
had before. I think it's
Right.
gonna give them, even as contractors, a better,
An idea of what,
Yeah.
what needs to be built.
make us feel more comfortable.
It gives us a lot more information to work
Yeah.
off of.
So those are the next steps. I'm not sure how long the geotech report takes. They're supposed to be out here Friday or early next week. And then once he has that, he can start the design. And then I'll have the team look at it. And then if we feel comfortable that there's enough information, we'll go out for bid for a general contractor. And that's at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to a board meeting and look at this, and see if we're gonna approve one of the bids.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to Idaho House Bill 415, Idaho Code 18-3302D.
I
Yeah.
second that
Yeah,
motion.
well, recess for a minute to go to the
Thanks.
restroom.
I'm glad somebody said something.
Pardon me?
Right.
They give you a bottle of water.
Which is not good.
Sorry.
That legislation.
Want me to go through it a little bit?
Yeah, if you would.
I'll go through what we have. In a tab, some supplemental materials for the discussion. So we included the House Bill 415. It's got about a 10-page summary. I believe it's in the Senate at this point. We included Idaho Code 183302D, because I believe that's the section that people have talked about tonight, that already under Idaho Code, the board is authorized to permit staff to carry concealed weapons. There's some information from our insurance company about how the passing of the bill might increase premiums, which would be part of budget talks later. There's a little bit of a checklist that I'll come back to, and it's between different superintendents about some pre-implementation steps a board would take, a school district would take before putting the plan in place. I'll come back to that. And then there are a few, I believe at least 3 sample policies regarding staff carrying concealed weapons, and these are from 3 different school districts who have this plan and policy already in place. Yeah, Salmon River, Bruno Grand, and Mountain View has the policy. They don't have the plan in place because their policy states once they can fund the plan, they would implement. So those are some of the documents you have.
Okay.
And it's on here for discussion at this point. But I'll say along with this is one of the bills in the House right now because it's legislation season. There are about 24 bills related to education on the floor right now. Anywhere from funding of charter schools to library review books, teacher accounts for supply money, and then carrying concealed weapons. So there's over 24. And that's why I had a slide here for you. This is a website where you can track and read a summary of those 24 bills.
I think, since you guys are on the board now, you should be getting an email in your school email, capital notes from Quinn, and that has that bill tracker on there. You can track it.
Where is this right now, sitting in the committee?
It's in Senate.
It passed the House.
Yeah, it's passed the House and it's in the Senate.
At like 56 to 16, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That
very
was high.
favorable.
The House. It's on here.
Right.
The House.
Right,
That's in the
that's the
Senate.
House, high, so it's sitting in the Senate.
Right.
Well, if it's a bill and it's put in place, how do we implement this in policy? Because it would actually just change it, making it legal, right? If it was a bill and it actually got voted on and put in place.
Well, according to Idaho Code, it's already legal.
So according to Idaho Code, as you would show me, which it's in 2 places, it's in C and D, is it says that we can put a policy in place.
Yeah, the local board can, so
So-
that staff that want to could carry concealed weapons. So there's 2 parts, I think, that I've heard is, one is people that are for or against this bill is it taken away from local control? Because
And I
boards
think
already have
that's
local
where
control.
ISB is having the problem is because they're about local control. Well, if this passes, then that kind of goes against their protocol on how they view things. They're more about leaving things to local control.
Sure.
So if this does pass, then that comes.
State.
Then the state's going to tell you
regulates
what to do, and what you can do. So that's the reason why they're voting no, for pushing for the no.
So that's a good point. What I don't understand is if it does pass, then it requires us to allow this?
It won't require it. What will be required is whatever the guidelines are.
So it will become law if it's passed, meaning that it will supersede that of this code.
We'll have to follow their guidelines.
Yeah.
Whatever is in the bill. Like right now, you can read some of the criteria in the bill.
Let's talk about.
And then the other part is the concept of the notion of carrying concealed weapons. It's two parts: local control, or losing local control, and the discussion of the notion of staff carrying.
Well, Jason was here last week. Was it Jason? Wasn't it? Yeah. And he was here last week, and he said the same thing about local control. We went back and forth about it for a minute. But I will give, my opinion on it, saying, in some aspects that can be perceived as giving local control. In other aspects, I look at the state giving control back to an actual amendment of our Constitution saying that we have the right to bear arms. Now, there is state code right now that says that takes that away from people naturally, and that allows the board to create policy, though, which we don't have in place.
Correct.
Which is a concern.
Yeah,
I think of all of ours. So with there not being a policy in place, if they pass this, there's nothing we can do no matter what, right? I mean, that's something that if they pass, it's going to go in, that we're going to have to adopt this policy.
We'll have to put policy in place that aligns with statute.
So what happens
and
if
works
they
for
don't?
St. Mary's.
And so I see this as a green light for some good things. And I see that also with a concern of some things as well. I understood what Jason had said about the concern being for, taking the power out of local control. So then if that was the case, then would we take the step and give that power locally by adopting very similar literature? Because that would also give control to what we don't have right now as a policy, in my personal opinion, that protects our students. This is such a sensitive subject, right? And this is where, when I was a patron and I was speaking of this, it was just a concern of mine because of my previous experience. And there are so many states that already have this, and there's so much literature for it, and there's so much literature against it. But walking through those schools and looking at the great prevention methods that we have, which we do have some, there was jinx and all that armor that was so easy to be seen and so quick to be seen that I think we all smoked while we were there. And the one question I asked myself is and let's face it, let's talk about the white elephant in the room. This is about in case there's an active shooter situation where there's an actual threat to our children, do we have a way of protecting them right then? An average self-defense encounter happens between 7 to 15 feet and 3 to 7 seconds long. That's statistically. And knowing that, and I mean, I've reviewed all this and, and I like a lot of these ideas, definitely to talk about for sure. But there were ones that I've been concerned that some of the superintendents wrote about a gun safe, which don't get me wrong, preventative ways, of course, for us to keep firearms safe is number one. But when we look at the bill, what the bill's speaking about specifically, it talks about control on the body of the person, which is the best control that can be, versus control of which would be locked up separate in a way, because response times also differ. When we worry about things like, is there right training? What if they're mentally unstable? And all these concerns that I absolutely have as well. When we actually look at the statute that speaks of what's required of them, which is the enhanced CCW, the enhanced CCW goes over a list of requirements, including the Idaho State Police must conduct a national fingerprint-based records check and inquiry through a national instant criminal record, the NICCS system, and check, and check for any mental health records for conditions or commitments that would disqualify a person from possessing a firearm under state or federal laws.
Right. Some of the policies wrote that in, that there would be a psychological screening.
Which I think is great. It's always a concern of ours. And I've heard arguments which are in both favors. I've heard, okay, well, what if we have an unstable teacher? Right now, as it is, there's no way that would prevent a teacher from bringing a firearm to school or a person from bringing a firearm to school other than a rule. There's no metal detectors. There's no vetting in process in any way. So weapons could be in that manner. And I think that's why the attention comes now to where we have to look at the statistics of what we see on a continual basis, as disgusting as it is, but people wanting to bring harm to our children. So my concern, as much as it's everyone's here, is how do we protect them? And is this bill going to create a good line of protection for them?
You know, I was on the board when this first came about years ago, and I know there was controversy on both sides. And, you know, I see both sides of it. It's a touchy issue. It's a touchy subject. I understand both sides of the coin. The biggest problem I have is, and with all the schools, I think we need to get rid of the gun-free zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, but that's a higher thing than what we can do. We've, you know, got to go, I don't know, a lot to try and.
In this bill,
address
it
that.
actually does that.
If you have a policy like this in the school, you could get rid of the gun-free school signs. There's schools in Idaho that have done it. There's a few that are working on getting guns in the hands of
This bill
teachers.
actually speaks of in its literature that if you do, and you will, and if not, there's a fine.
Fine if you don't.
So it actually specifies, which we know that, you know, those gun-free signs, what does it do? It paints a target on kids.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. And as much as
exactly.
Bob Lowe spends his time in there,
Well, and that's my thought. We need to get rid of those signs because, I mean, obviously that's the soft target where people go. You know, arming a teacher, I think there's a lot of things that goes into that a person does not realize. You know, your training, obviously it's going to be nonstop training with the teachers, teacher or teachers and your law enforcement people. You know, it's going to be ongoing. So there again, so who's going to pay for that for the teacher to go to training all the time?
But if we go like what they're doing with this bill,
it's requiring the teacher to do it.
there's training before you can even apply.
It's actually important.
Well, okay, but
Well,
still,
there
you're,
is,
but
like,
still,
there's
you're going to
not-
have to pay that teacher to train.
No, it would be on them because it's for the teachers that actually want to do it.
So
It's
let me
not
ask,
for
So
everyone.
let me ask you, if you were a teacher in the classroom there and you were getting paid X amount of dollars to teach, would you want to pack a firearm over and beyond and take all that responsibility on yourself?
That's
If something-
Absolutely, I would.
Okay.
So, and what I look at here is what this bill says specifically. There's no mandate to make somebody carry a firearm. There's no mandate for us to choose that and create that and be responsible financially for their training. There's a mandate in the law right here that specifies their courses, and it's extensive. We're not talking about a little bit of training. We're talking about a decent amount of training by an actual qualified instructor, qualifications through the state, and what it's requiring. What this does in this bill, which I've read over and over again, is it actually allows teachers that choose to take that responsibility on being responsible. Okay. Doesn't make them responsible if they choose not to, if they're carrying, use their firearm, but also protects them if they do use their firearm from someone other, than us, or even us saying, well, I don't think you should use your firearm. If they're found legally reasonable for doing that, it protects them in every way. And this is the way I interpret this, because I know we're worried about control in these ways. Because I look at this and I go, this is really giving us a little bit more power in some ways to being able to still understand, know, and protect, specifying, knowing which teachers do, making sure we're protecting the teacher at the same time also having specifics that say, okay, if they do this and there's some reason that we would want to pull that ability or capability from them, be it behavioral or problems or emotional break, whatever the might concern be, it's actually labeled in here that gives a lot of power in that way to the board still.
Well, the policies can be written that way.
Right. And we can change that. So this is a bill that I think that we're looking at. Of course, it's going through the state.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not it gets adopted, right? If it gets adopted, then we're going to have to roll with it anyways. If it doesn't, well, I think this is a good attention to a factor of what needs to be spoken about, which is the elephant in the room always.
Well, there's a
How
big
to protect
difference
our children.
between a concealed carry license and an enhanced carry license.
There is.
And there has to be that element of extreme training and background search and annual. And it's an incredible amount. Our policy would have to include an incredible amount of paperwork and paper trail. And constant and continual.
Well,
And some of these policies
then
show
you're back to your insurance, you know?
Right.
Your insurance premiums are gonna go up, so.
We might have to anyways, which is what we're looking at right now. And when I'm talking about this, there's a lot of concerns that Teresa sent with us, which I'm totally all on board of. Like, okay, does this? It said, one of them said all your teachers have to be on board. This bill that says it's not up to the teachers, all teachers be on board. It's up to the factor of allowing the ones that do are protected, and also should be.
Yeah.
Because imagine how much might also come against them if they choose to carry by teachers that disagree with them. So there needs to be discreetness. There needs to be, privacy in this. Frankly, having a concealed carry license, in case you didn't know, is public information. Everyone can find out how. It's in the sheriff's records. Now, whether or not they choose to carry on school grounds, right? It's allowing training. It's requiring training. It's requiring these things, but it's also, and like I said, I think it's giving more power and protection to the citizen, but at the same time, allowing us also vet that with a degree of protecting our kids, which is everyone's concern. Something in here I wanted to speak about here that I read about, I thought was pretty quintessential here was, one of the superintendents, so you're saying made this checklist, was speaking about, what about training? What about having someone come in? That might be a wise idea if this doesn't become law, right? If we don't have to adopt this policy and we choose to move forward, maybe having someone come in and assessing or doing critical incidents.
I will say, Tana's husband Craig hooked me up with an outfit out of Pinehurst, Fort Sherman Academy, and they train people for going overseas to these things to get yourself out of some predicaments.
Sure.
Anyway, they come to our schools and they went. We met in the middle school gymnasium lunchroom for an overall deal. And then we went down into the middle school and we had teachers go to their rooms and stuff. And the secretary was in there and Alyssa, the superintendent, and I was in the office. And they shut the lights out. They were walking up and down the halls. They were shooting a gun in there. I mean, obviously it wasn't a live fire, but it wasn't. I mean, it was.
They were doing a critical incident.
Yeah, exactly. Banging on the lockers and all that. Everything probably what you would have in that scenario.
How productive was it?
Pardon me?
How productive was it?
I think it was very productive, and I wish we would have kept going, and I don't know why we didn't, but anyway, so then we got everybody together, and then they went to the high school. They went to the Hayburn, and I can't speak of if they went to Upriver or not.
They did.
They did? Okay. What was your thoughts about it, Katrina?
Scared the hell out of me.
Okay.
Quite honestly. I was
Of course.
sitting in my classroom and they started pounding on and I realized that my plan that I had, if something like that was to happen, was very flawed.
Absolutely.
And I changed how my classroom was set up, how my kids would be protected. I changed it all in that day. And,
This was very productive.
And it was very, very scary.
Personally, I would love to have them back. I think it was very, very, very productive.
Can I interject then?
Yeah.
For that part of the conversation, I know we're going way deep. We have our safety meeting, I think Chris Asbury talked about, is this Thursday. So there's a few things happening. Because when I think about all the pre-implementation steps we want to take, some of it is to your very question, what other measures can we put in place to stop imminent danger? And one is the safety meeting where we want to add law enforcement, but I think it's also wise that we add a board member and a community or parent to keep track or be a part of additional steps, additional safety measures that we want to put in place, both at the sites, which you saw, but also returning with some of this active shooter incident drills again. And we're starting those conversations again this very Thursday. So I just think that's an important piece when we talk about we know there's more in terms of a pre-implementation plan. We know there's more secure and safety measures at our schools, both with drills as well as better securing our buildings. We know that. And those are steps we want and need to be taking.
I think that definitely
while we're talking about if this becomes a plan or a bill.
Well, and I think this is all good measures, no matter what. I think we're
Exactly.
looking at a bill that might become a law. So I'm just trying to project this. And I mean, I wasn't even the one that asked for this to be on the agenda originally, but this is something I've been in this business for 13 years. This is something I used to teach law enforcement how to do. I used to teach people how to do this. And being in this industry as well, I know tons of people that specify with schools. Whether this becomes a bill or doesn't, and it becomes a policy, whether we want to adopt this policy, I think the attention needs to come to the matter of, obviously, number one, it's part of our new school safety, right? When we walked around the other day, it was easy for me to see small things, and we discussed it. We were like, hey, and it was just spoken about even today about communicative problems with the high school, about, Ping says sometimes whenever you're rating back and forth, bad, especially in an active shooter situation. Having those problems needs to be looked at. I think if we adjust this, if we do want to look into this from an outside eye, what that does is it provides questions and things that we've never asked ourselves with people that do this for a living. That'll give good attention to the things for the preventative methods that I think need to be put in place. The last resort always is a firearm or use of deadly force. We know this, right? We're all here because we love our kids, man. But we have to face the fact that the only thing that stops somebody with a weapon is another person with a weapon, or that can at least stop them from using that weapon. And a firearm, unfortunately, has such a capability of unequalizing person. It's like what Samuel Colt said. It's like what they used to say about Samuel Colt. God didn't make all men equal. Colt did. And I know that's crazy. This isn't the Old West. But I'm trying to say, unfortunately, people can access firearms. It's a part of our Constitution. People will use firearms and carry firearms every single day. We're in Idaho, where there's a large population that use them and have access to them. If somebody wanted to do harm, what are we doing to protect our kids? And I think there's a good policy here, or at least good literature that we can look at as possibly being a policy if it's not adopted into law. There's a lot of things that I've heard back and forth about the shalls and the mays and all the different specifics which we could take to the table when the time comes. But this is good literature that addressed every concern that you had about, what about, you asked about making somebody carry, or what's going to be. If you read the literature specifically, it outlines and it goes through, as I've compared it to the previous law, it gives specifics that are like, dang, there's a reason why I think it passed in the House 56-16. And we'll see what happens from that point on. But I think it's worth a discussion.
Absolutely.
Personally. Right.
No, him too. And I think we'll just watch it and see what plays out there, and then come back to the table and
take it back.
Yeah,
I think maybe you're in your safety meeting with the staff members, maybe ask them, what their thoughts for the people who were here back then. Maybe about
I'd like to be there.
Bringing
That'd be
it
all
back again.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that feedback. And I think that is some of our continued steps, our pre-implementation steps, I'm calling it, right? Start a discussion, become aware, continue to monitor the bill, continue to read the literature. Right? There's that they recommend that as part of the checklist. Continue to read the literature, study the bill, study Idaho code, look at the different policies that are already in place. We, as a board and superintendent, can also be networking. Reach out. I've reached out to the superintendents who have these policies in place, and I'm going to continue. Like I've talked to Mountain View, but I still need to talk to the other superintendents, Garden Valley and Salmon River.
I think we should
lessons
discuss
learned.
this as well, right?
Board members, I invite you as a networking. So we study the literature and also reach out to the board members from these school districts who already have this program in place. What are lessons learned? Reading the different policies allows us to, what do we want? What do we not want? Should we go forward with a plan? I think continuing to be part of our safety meeting, so we continue to take every preventative measure possible on the school side as well as the facility side to prevent any kind, before we would have to exhaust all other safety and security measures before we'd have to go here. That's another step. Gathering input. Gathering input from law enforcement in St. Mary's, gathering input from staff in St. Mary's, gathering input from our business and community members, gathering input from parents. That's a 3 to 4 to 5 month timeline doing these steps. And also paying attention to the strategic plan and the budget. because different schools have allocated
Yeah.
A
Reimbursement.
cost
Right.
to support staff who would want to, in terms of the firearm and the maintenance and the training and the mileage, plus what might happen to our premiums. So those are discussions in the strategic plan, because where would that action step fall
Right.
into our plan? If, and what kind of money would we be talking about allocating to it?
Yeah, the way that this bill's written, it won't cost us anything.
It's not up for
It's
us.
also policy that
Right.
we're
Yeah.
gonna write.
If we write that policy and it's not the bill, my question I really would wonder is how much was our insurance company saying premium would go up? Number one. Number two would be a
What part of
curiousness
it?
to what these
Sure.
other schools, and I don't know how private or what, they can, I don't know the rules to that, but I wonder what they're paying and I wonder what
Yeah,
they're
no,
using. You know what I
it's
mean?
public knowledge,
Okay.
like how they've itemized.
Just wondering those things,
Yeah.
because these
Yeah.
are all good
No,
questions.
and what different steps, how that impacts it,
Right.
or does it impact it at all? I mean,
I think one thing to consider,
Those are all part of this next steps.
Yeah.
mentioned it's the
Studying.
timeline of, 4, 5, 6 months. Once the governor signs this, which could be as early as next month,
Could be.
it is 100% legal for our teachers to carry in
That's
school.
right.
That's right. And we have
So then
support
it's-
from the sheriff. I've talked to him about it already.
So what I,
The sheriffs in Idaho support this bill.
So some of the steps, if it became law, some of the steps we were going to take is the getting input from law enforcement, getting input from staff, getting input from community members. Some of the steps would be continue to study these different policies, to ask those questions. Where does it fit in the budget? What parts of the different policies do we want? What were lessons learned from the other school districts? What would happen to our insurance? Those are just some of the, due diligence steps we'd want to take. Continuing to attend safety meetings to continue to secure our buildings and our schools. All steps to take.
Especially if that bill doesn't go in, that we would want to address. Those are steps
Those are
want to
steps
have
we want to take no
information
matter what.
if we decide if we're going to pay attention to this policy afterwards. Okay,
Okay,
good discussion.
all right. Moving on to spring 2024 employment job fairs.
Switching gears here. Last year, my understanding, we went to these two job fairs, Washington and Missoula. The idea is we would take a few staff at the elementary and the secondary schools to attend these career fairs in the hopes that we find quality educators. We know that we're gonna
oh, you don't, Paul doesn't have an O.
There's 0 O in mine.
Hey, O, 0.
you have the invisible ink.
Run out of paper or ink?
Simply will take care of that. The Washington is one day. You have a few staff go down and come back. The Missoula could be an overnighter. The fair is one day. And for the Missoula one, the people were able to give us information that potentially there's 28 candidates that will have their elementary certificate, 18 secondary graduates that would have their certificate in secondary education. So it's an opportunity to go to these fairs and recruit some quality credentialed teachers. Potentially we will have some openings, math, English, CTE, electives, possible K-5 teachers, special ed.
So just a question, I see Washington and Montana are on there. What about the University of Idaho?
What about the University of Idaho?
They have emailed and theirs is later in March. So we haven't confirmed yet who's going. And it's a one day, usually a few hours. They used to go to the university, or not the university, one of the hotels there in Coeur d'Alene. It was like an
University Inn?
One of those, yeah.
Did we
Coeur
attend
d'Alene
last
Inn.
year?
No, they did not have it
Oh, okay.
because of COVID.
Okay.
No, just.
Yeah.
And
That's a good question. I agree.
We're
Yeah.
spending some funds to stay overnight in Missoula.
Yeah.
When we've got a
don't go there.
university down.
Definitely, especially because it's our state as well. Just wondering. That's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
It's a
great
lot
one.
Like-minded people,
Yeah.
probably more in Idaho than Washington for sure.
I mean, we could try it out at least for 1 year and see what we think.
Yeah,
you know,
see
and
see if we
it's
get
worth it.
candidates,
Right.
see if it's worth it. It's kind of a baseline data point for me to try
Sure,
it out.
sure.
We had gone there last year, and then I saw, I mean, the number of potential candidates graduating from Missoula with elementary and secondary credentials are promising. I certainly like the idea of going right here in our backyard at the
Sure.
University of Idaho.
And they're changing it this year. They said it's a roundtable discussion, so you invite people in, smaller attendees. I think they were only accepting 12 schools. It was low this year, so, for Missoula.
I mean, we'd like to be able to interview them.
LCSC, don't they have an education program and stuff?
I'm sorry.
LCSC, don't they have an education
We have
program?
not attended that one.
LTS.
Lewiston.
Oh, Lewiston Clark. Okay.
Lewiston.
Well, that's where Ryan Eberlein graduated from, isn't it?
We had several teachers that graduated from
I
that.
mean, just, yeah, that's a good question. What can we find?
Yeah, you can
Just in
certainly
case
direct
those-
us,
Yeah.
direct me to
Yeah.
send a group to the different
That'd be awesome.
universities. Lewiston and Clark. Levi. And the idea is we would interview right on the spot and have some letter of intents ready,
Well,
knowing
Sit
some of
down
the
right off the
vacancies.
bat, huh?
put them on the spot.
We got you first.
Sometimes we go fast and we're like,
Yeah.
we missed that opportunity.
Here's a pen, sign.
Okay. Moving on to P, board's request to administration, board development.
Well, one request I heard was look into some of these other universities for stuff with job
Yeah.
fairs.
Yeah.
And there was one earlier.
What, we have 2 more in Boise. That's a little ways, right? There's- Just in case. I don't know.
What was
Fort
it?
Sherman.
I just like the idea, the factor that we're
Fort
looking
Sherman.
statewide and trying to get funds
Fort
to
Sherman
states, trying to keep
training.
it within the state,
Think
trying to
from
find
shooter
people
training,
from.
officer
It's a great
Way
idea.
over
Yeah.
there.
More
Yeah.
likely locals would be in-state
Especially
tuition.
Lewis or Moscow. I mean,
Yeah, Lewiston, Clark.
Awesome.
We'll look into those. We'll look into those.
Okay.
And then Seth attending the safety meetings. We have a board member representative.
Yes.
We meet monthly, so this is Thursday.
Yeah,
I'll
and I
send
won't
you.
be bothered. I just want to hear everybody how
What
that
time
is.
is that on Thursday? Because Brady has meetings on Thursday.
I'll send you I'll
tomorrow?
send you information.
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
Tomorrow's Thursday. Oh, yeah,
Today's only
And there was
Monday.
somebody else made a
It's
request
just Monday.
earlier, way earlier.
I'll make it happen.
I wrote
I'll
it
make it
down.
happen. for
Okay.
sure.
And then
All right.
Friday,
Moving on to the action items.
you remember Friday?
Q, we need to review and consider a motion to approve the district-wide emergency school closure for January 9th, 2024 due to snowy weather conditions.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I fell asleep.
All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just letting you know, there's only one form that has all 3 dates behind S. So,
So there's nothing in tab R and S.
so excuse me.
Q.
Q. Yep, nothing behind R or S.
Okay. R, review and consider a motion to approve the district-wide emergency school closure for January 17th, 2024 due to snowy weather conditions.
Can I add something? For you and go into it, just really fast, because it came up earlier and I think it's been answered. We don't have to make those days up at this point. We have more instructional minutes than the minimum requirement. And our seniors are the closest, so they have up to 3 days left.
That
Where
could
we
be
would-
used in case of bad weather.
Yeah,
Okay.
and all the other grades have at least 5, if not more, so we should be in good shape.
Okay, while we're discussing it,
Cancel baseball.
yeah, so
So-
if we're canceling school and then the weather gets better, can we get a hold of the coaches and see if they want to have practice or continue with an event?
That's a tough one. I am meeting with the coaches and the athletic director and the principal to talk about criteria. So that Wednesday that we had a snow day, that was a perfect example that it snowed all day and there was nothing gonna happen for the day or after. The Thursday was the contrast. where the criteria would have been nice if we had late or delayed start as a possibility. So I brought the principals together to create a late start schedule potentially, and talked with transportation and talked with food service. And if families and parents are okay with it, that could be a criteria, because that was the perfect. We could have done a late delayed start, 10 or 10:30, and then that puts in motion school and all after school programs can run. So something like that, criteria wise.
So that's something we need to make a policy for.
We don't need to make a policy for it. It's just gonna be a practice.
We're ready.
Remember, we're going backwards with policy. We're not adding.
You're trying to get 500, aren't you?
10 more. Rock and roll.
Okay, let's make a policy that we can't add a policy. We can't amend a policy.
We could put that into practice. I'm working with the staff to put something like that into practice. And then be able to communicate it out, so we're not all reacting.
All right, how about we have a motion?
I motion for
Sorry.
that, by the way.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Sure.
More discussion?
No.
All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yes, review and consider motion to approve the district-wide emergency school closure for January 18th due to weather conditions.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Accept it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. T, review and consider motion to approve the job descriptions. Transportation mechanic manager, transportation router / scheduler / training manager.
I just made minor updates to these. They lost their director a couple years ago, so I became their director, and we just wanted to reorganize the title mainly. So there was a little bit of overlap. So just wanted to clean it up. So there's a mechanic manager, and we removed a couple of the responsibilities under there because they belonged under the route scheduler manager position. So now you've got a mechanic manager, just cleaner, and then you've got your scheduler, router, trainer, manager. That's all we did. We just kind of cleaned up the job descriptions to match the organization of the department.
Now, this doesn't include like looking for an employee. This has
No.
already been filled, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'd make a motion to accept.
Yes.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Review and consider a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Josh, I'll second it.
All in favor
We're
saying
already.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I can
Well, what do you
steal,
keep
I
out
can
of your
steal
book?
some of this stuff.
Yep.
It'll be 4:15.
Oh, did I do that to you? I'm sorry.
That whole section.